I recently watched The Ultimate Fighter 10, and one of your opponents was on there. One of your past opponents, Scott Junk. Can you
Right.
tell me anything about him?
Scott Junk is a really athletic heavyweight. He's someone that moves really fast. Um, he's 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 just a guy that really, if he was given the opportunity and didn't start the game late, he would have been successful. Um, he's really tough, and he's very, like I said, he's very athletic. Um, just the guys he was training with in Hawaii and some of the people he's kind of worked with, he just didn't have the opportunity to learn. When some of the guys start late in the sport, they have to train twice as hard and learn twice as much. It's like cramming for an exam. Where if you started at a young age, it's a lot easier.
Now this is a hot button with a lot of people anymore. What are your thoughts on Kimbo Slice?
Kimbo Slice, really, in the beginning, when I first, really got to know who he was and only saw him fighting on the YouTube videos, to me, he was just, to be honest with you, he was a guy who was really self-promoted very well. And what I mean by that is, you got to take a step back. He might not be the best athlete out there in the world. He might not even be the well-rounded fighter. The truth of the matter is that he only fought 2 fights and probably made more money than I made in my whole career fighting. So to me, he had great marketing. He had great execution of using the press, using YouTube, using some of the friends he had to help him edit and cut some of these backyard fights, and also to push himself in a CBS show. He fought in 2 shows, made a lot of money, lots of sponsorships, and then working with the UFC where they paid him a bunch of money to be in the Ultimate Fighter. So in the end, some people would say he's not a great fighter and he'll never be one of the best and blah blah blah. At the end of the day, I think he's very smart because he really marketed himself so good that he made more money than most athletes would have made in the sport. So really, my hat goes off to him because he's the last guy laughing because he's going to the bank cashing his big checks.
I never thought of it that way.
No, you didn't, and that's why people don't. People might say, "Oh, he's a tomato can, he's a bum," but really, he's smart. He's getting, he was getting paid 250,000, 200, plus sponsorships, making about $500,000 a fight. This is a guy who was fighting in the backyard for 10, 20 grand, which would probably be more than most fighters made it in mixed martial arts. So the truth is, and then when you watch The Ultimate Fighter and you actually got to know Kimbo Slice
Yeah.
on the show, to me I thought he handled himself the best out of all the athletes that were on the show. It kind of fell for him. You know what I mean? You kind of liked him.
Yeah. I always thought that Kimbo Slice, when he was an Elite XC, I didn't think that wasn't even an organization, because they would stand up fighters when there was submissions. But when I seen him go into the Ultimate Fighter, like you said, I did fall for him and say, wow, this guy, I could relate to that. He has to go and he has to pay his bills too.
Exactly. I mean, when you really get down, there's a lot of people out there and a lot of people that have a misconception. I believe that sometimes the way press turns things around or how people want to judge people, it happened to me. A lot of people, even to this day, a lot of people, were not happy with the fact that I won Celebrity Rehab. And then there was a lot of other people that said, hey, look, I've been there before. I've had my substance abuse problems. I had these issues. And, I'm compelled to tell you that, I too had these problems. So, people can judge. It's easy to sit home and say, oh, that guy's an asshole. This guy's a dick. And then when they get to know who that person is, or they take the time to understand their story and feel for them, that's when they find, a different feeling for that person. So you know what I mean? It's tough sometimes to make every person in the sport happy, or every person out there in the world watching you, happy. It's very difficult, and you can only hopefully just come out with the truth, and hopefully everybody, sees how sincere you are. Hopefully they can, have some compassion for you.
Did you ever come across anybody that was not in the game for what you are. You have mutual respect for most of your fighters. I seen a video on you that you spit at Ben Rothwell.
Mm-hmm.
Was he disrespecting you or something?
Well, there was no, Ben Rothwell never disrespected me. I was just really frustrated, and what happened was there was a point in the match where we were stuck in the corner, and he wouldn't get up, and I was stuck. I was pinned in a situation where I couldn't do anything. He didn't do anything, and what happened was I was just so frustrated that I was at a point where I couldn't do anything. So that was pretty much me being immature and just kind of letting out my frustration, and that was it. I was just salty because I'd taken that fight literally 5 days out of when I got out of rehab, and I took the fight and basically tried to put myself together, and it didn't pan out the way I wanted it to.
Is there I know that there's a big thing with steroids in other sports. Is there a lot of steroid use inside of mixed martial arts?
I wouldn't say that there isn't, but I would let you know that this sport is monitored, 10, 15 times more that, you can multiply, because the UFC and each state that we fight in regulate the sport with narcotics, barbiturates, or, steroids hard. They do not, take any leniency towards anybody. You're heavily tested, and if you've had a problem in the past, then you're going to get tested before and after, and that's just the way the UFC works. And they have a firm policy on drug abuse or steroid abuse. They don't tolerate it at all, and everyone is tested for everything under the sun. So if you're testing positive for any of these drugs, you will be fined and you will be suspended.
What is your goal right now in fighting?
My goal right now is just to drop down to light heavyweight next year in 2010, and hopefully to just compete at a level that I feel good. Right now my goal is to make my record 50-11. So right now I'm at 38-11. I plan on having 12 more fights and just making my record a little bit better, and possibly getting into the big show to hopefully go be the second person to win the light heavyweight championship and the heavyweight championship. So the only person to do that was Randy Couture, and that's my goal, is to fight at 205.
So you do plan on going back to the UFC?
Eventually. I want my honest opinion. I just don't think I'm ready for that at this present time. It's going to take me some time to get adjusted to the weight that I'm losing, and then also go back to the bigger shows.